For the fall season premiere of our Emmy-winning documentary series In Real Life, correspondent Soledad O'Brien went inside this radio war of sorts for Latino voters. Take a look.
We want to hear from you.
Why radio? Why was radio such a great way to reach Latinos?
Where can they get those extra votes? From us.
It is the Rush Limbaugh era in Spanish radio.
I feel like you're getting a lot of misinformation.
Misinformation is to the ear of the beholder.
Some stuff is just lies. Come on.
War on the radio on In Real Life. New episode next Sunday night at 8/7 Central. Only on Scripps News.
And we're joined now by veteran award-winning journalist Soledad O'Brien. She's the host of this In Real Life documentary. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. From what you found in putting this documentary together, how are voices on the right and the left making their case to Latino voters on the radio?
They're working very hard to make their case, and that's because the number of Latinos is big, right? Half of all new voters are Latino. The population is younger than the average voter. There's a large number of Latinos who exist in the states that are very crucial, the swing states. And there are, if you look at, for example, the state of Pennsylvania, there are enough Latino votes up for grabs that you could actually swing that state to whoever kind of can grab those votes. So very, very important. And so what you see on the radio is a real fight for those voters. And that means doing Spanish radio, Latino radio in a way that combines music and entertainment and a little bit of what I like to call over-the-topness, but also a lot of information about the election, all kind of mixed in together, right? It's not a newscast and it's not straight entertainment. It's this kind of amalgam of all of the above, led by hosts who are very personal, very dynamic, and have a real relationship with their audience. So, for example, they'll do a lot of job fairs, so really kind of creating this link with their community. So they're both trying very, very hard to get that attention. But, and there's a big but, if you look at the numbers, I think the Harris campaign spent $3 million, the Trump campaign just spent $1 million. Like, meh. There's no analyst who's going to tell you, like, wow, that's a big spend. Wow, that's impressive. So I think a lot of people are saying they care, but maybe don't care so much yet.
Soledad, you talked a little bit about the job fairs. How much of the conversation right now is centered on the economy and jobs?
Yeah, it's only the economy and jobs. And sometimes it's the economy and jobs, and then you might get into conversations about inflation, and you might get into conversations about wages, and you might get into conversation about employment, which is all the economy. It's interesting. I think where mistakes, and analysts told us this, where mistakes are made is when, often when people are reporting on Latinos, I have been so knee deep in this and being brought out on a conversation about Latinos panel, and it's immigration. And actually, most Latinos are not immigrants and they're not Spanish dominant, right? So it kind of misses the mark. And what they're finding is that it actually just is not a good sort of center of discussion, even though often a campaign will center their discussion around immigration. Latinos want to talk about economy, 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 and then after that, more economy.
It's interesting because in this documentary, you're speaking on the issues right now, but there's also this coverage of the history of progressive movements on Latino radio. But then there's also a kind of a discussion where we're seeing more right-wing voices also entering the space. What is behind this shift, and how much of it is a push and pull for power over those airwaves?
Yeah, it's all a push and pull, and that's a great way to put it. But it's also, a little bit of why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Like, you go to the radio because that's where Latinos are, more than 95%. And I've seen figures as high as 97% that say 97% of Latinos are listening to the radio at some point during the week. And that's because many Latinos are working class, which means they're in the kinds of jobs, construction, any kind of job that is in the field, right? They have access to radio on the whole entire workday. For Latinos who are wealthier, often they've already moved on to streaming so they can get their favorite radio station wherever. And so what you see is that this just amazing sort of in the community of radio. So, of course, if you're trying to figure out, okay, how do we get our message to the population, then that message, in fact, is going to come through the radio. It's no surprise. figuring out how you massage the message, I think, is key. And I think what analysts have told us is like, neither campaign, if you're just looking at Harris and you're looking at Trump, is really getting it right quite yet. Some of that correlated to a bit of a lackluster spend when the population, just the demographics would tell you that there's a lot to win and a lot to lose if you don't grab the hearts and minds of Latinos.
Because Soledad, historically, a majority of Latinos have supported the Democratic Party. That advantage, though, it has declined to Democrats' lowest level in the past 4 years, according to a recent NBC News and Telemundo poll. We do want to play a part of an interview you did for this documentary. Let's take a listen.
We are neither Democrat nor Republican is what I'm realizing, is we don't feel at home in either party. The Latino voter is the moderate, quantifiably in both parties. We are much less hyper-partisan. We are much less extreme. We are much more focused on economic issues that we have typically identified with politicians in this country's history, and much less than what we're seeing right now, whether it's critical race theory or trans issues or you name a litany of these issues, most of them manufactured to make people angry.
Soledad, how important and influential is the American Latino vote this year?
Yeah, massive. It's huge. I mean, just look at the demographics. Now, you can only sort of win via demographics if people vote, right? And that's really key and critical. And you have to be able to motivate folks to go to the polls. And what they're seeing, and you just heard Mike Madrid there, he's a Republican who is very much anti-Trump. So he's a never Trumper Republican. But he would say, part of the challenge is that when you have all these discussions that deal with social issues and pull away from discussions around the economy, you're sort of losing voters. That's just not, for Latinos, just not what they care about. Again, economy, economy, economy. And for people who don't understand that, they're really going to lose. But the Latino vote is potentially huge. If you can win, if Latinos vote in big numbers for one party or the other in the state of Pennsylvania, that's who's going to win.
Soledad O'Brien, thank you very much for this conversation. This In Real Life documentary premieres Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern right here on Scripps News. And new episodes of In Real Life will premiere weekly throughout the fall.